everyone, it's Becky from Book Obsessed Becky. I am on here to give you my February wrap-up, and I struggle doing wrap-ups because I'm always worried that I'm going to give away too much, or I'm not going to give away enough to make people want to read the books that I've read, you know, just to know if they have an interest in them, I guess. So this month I have read a lot of digital books. Not this month. February I read a lot of digital books and library books, so I am going to do the best I can with the blurbs. I've got my notebook here to help. I will start out with one of my library books because it's got to go back. It's got to go back this weekend, and it is 1,000 Heartbeats. So I don't know as though I ever would have picked this up, but when I went into my library last month, they were doing a date, like a blind date kind of a thing with the book. And this was the third book I had picked up. The first two I had picked up were books I already read. So that was kind of disappointing. But this was the last one that I had picked up, and I'm just going to tell you what I found out about the book, what tempted me to pick it up. And that is the blind date thing. It says, at the same time Annika was reaching to feel her sword in its hiding place beneath her bed, Lennox was wiping blood from his. I was like, what? So I was stoked to kind of pick this up and see what it was about. It is a romantasy, and there are some trigger warnings in here, which I'm going to tell you right now. And other than that, I'm not telling you anything else about the book, but I will say that I loved it. So there's trigger warnings for murder. There's war scenes in here. There's quite a bit of death. There is abuse in here. Like mother's boyfriend beating on her kid kind of abuse. There are mental health struggles in here. And there's death of parents in this book. If you can get past all of that, I really did enjoy this. And I think if you like romantasy, then you would like this. It is a closed door romance as well. Okay, another book that I had picked up, this is the other one that I have a physical copy of. It's Someone Else's Shoes. This was one of my book of the month picks a while ago, and it's also one of the books I wanted to get read in 2024. So this is one of the 24 books I wanted to do. And what I found online, so I was trying to do like a quick blurb search online, because again, I worry about giving away too much. It said, this is a story of mix-ups, mess-ups, and making the most of second chances. I agree with that. This is the first Jojo Moyes book I've ever read as well. So you're following along with Nisha. She is a seriously rich woman. Her son is in a boarding school. Her husband has an uppity-up job. They travel the world. At this point in the book, they're in London. And her husband decides to cut her off from everything, won't let her back in the hotel room. She can't access any cash. She can't access her clothing, nothing. She's completely cut off, and he decides he wants to get a divorce, but he makes her wait days before he gets in touch with her. Then you're following, and when he does get in touch with her, he is demanding to receive or to get back heels that he had bought her a while ago, and he's not willing to deal with her and give her any money until he gets these heels back, which kind of piques her interest a little bit. It's kind of suspicious. The next person that we're following is Sam. Sam is a wife and a mom. She used to love her job, but now she's struggling with her job because there's a new boss, and the new boss is kind of sexist, and he's like a good old boy, and she's in her 40s, and he's trying to kind of push her out. She's also dealing with a husband at home who is severely depressed after the death of his father. She goes to the gym one morning, and it just so happens that Nisha's at the same gym. This is before Nisha's world fell apart. And when she's leaving the gym, she ends up grabbing Nisha's bag by mistake. This bag contains the heels that Nisha needs to get her husband to speak to her. So you're following these two women throughout the story. Nisha is kind of been knocked down a few pegs, obviously, since she doesn't have any money. So she's been forced to go to work. She doesn't have any place to stay, so she has to find a place to stay. And Sam is running late for a meeting. She digs into this bag thinking that it's hers, and she discovers that it's not hers, but she doesn't have time to turn around to head back to the gym to switch the bags. So she puts on the shoes that are in the bag that she has, and it's an instant confidence boost because they're like super expensive shoes, like super sexy expensive shoes, and something she would never wear, but she decides to wear them. So as we're following along the story, you are following Sam as she's trying to rebuild her life, like get her confidence back, stand up for herself, that sort of thing, help her husband, keep her family afloat. You're following Nisha as she is trying to desperately find these shoes. She goes across London looking for them. What she discovers along the way are new friends, how it feels to be back in the workforce. She finds a strength all in herself. This is a really great story. It's funny, it's sad, it's infuriating, and there are trigger warnings in here. There's mentions of suicide, cancer, there is depression, and just an overall like bad marriage situation. But if you've never picked up Jojo Moyes, I think this is a good one to start with. I mean, this is the one that I started with and I really enjoyed it, so maybe you will too. Okay, moving on. Got my book here that's got all of my digital ones in here. So I will try to insert pictures again, but Must Love Flowers by Debbie Macomber is a book that I had also gotten from the library. I really enjoyed this book. It took me a long time to pick it up. It came out, I want to say like a year or so ago. And I tend to love all of Debbie Macomber's books, but this one I struggled picking up because I knew it was about alcoholism, an alcoholic father, and his abusive outbursts toward his daughter, which if you've ever lived in that kind of a situation, it's definitely tough. So like revisiting it in a story, I was kind of hesitant, but I'm really glad that I picked this up. So in this book, you are following two women. They're at different stages of their lives. And they've both been through some really difficult things. So we're following Joan. She is a widowed mother of two. Her kids are both adults. Her husband, she used to work for her husband. He was like, I think he was a dentist. They worked together and they spent all of their time together. He passed away, then COVID hit. So she kind of went in on herself with her grief and with COVID, and she just kind of hid away from the world. Now that COVID's over, she's still hiding away from the world. She has really kind of fallen into a depression of sorts. And she ends up having a birthday kind of toward the beginning of the book, and she ends up spending her birthday alone again. And after that birthday alone, she's decided, you know what, enough is enough. I am going to work to get my life back. Then we're following Maggie, who is a college student. She works at Starbucks in the morning, and in the afternoon, evening, she is a nursing student. She also tutors kids on the side for extra money. She lives with her father. Her mother passed away when she was younger. Her father is disabled, and he spends all of his money and her money on booze. He sits around all day, he bounces from the bar to the house, and all he does is drink. And sometimes he has some pretty nasty outbursts toward her. He's kind of always putting her down and that sort of thing. And Maggie has decided enough is enough when her when the house is getting ready to have its power cut off. She decides she can't do this anymore. So she thinks maybe by leaving her dad, it'll get her dad to snap out of it. So she starts looking for a room. The room that she finds for rent actually happens to be Joan's room, and she moves in with Joan, and they start this friendship. Joan seeks help for her depression, and Maggie starts her life as a young woman in college, finally getting to have some time because she's not supporting a household. And we're just kind of following them throughout their story, throughout friendship and romance and their struggles. It was a really good book. I really enjoyed it, but beware for trigger warnings for verbal abuse, alcoholism, sudden death, and cancer. Okay, so another book that I want to talk about, I'm going to pull it up on my laptop because I don't even know how to describe this book without giving away anything. So I'm just going to read you the Goodreads blurb, but know that this was one of my favorite books so far this year. This will definitely be making my top 10, I'm sure of it, and that is Divine Rival Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And Goodreads says, when two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell in a war among gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. Shadow and Bone meets lore in this epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. I don't know what else to say about this book other than I devoured it. I loved it so much. It's a romantasy. There are trigger warnings for obviously addiction and death and war, battle scenes, the whole deal. Abusive parents, sibling death. And for me, like, there are certain books that have the most epic romance in them. And for me, A Man Called Ove, or A Man Named Ove, or Ove, however you say it, by Frederick Bachman is one of them. I think that is one of the most romantic books ever. Ove's love for his wife. Another one is Pride and Prejudice. I absolutely love Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet's story that they have. And then Snape from Harry Potter. First of all, he's my favorite character in the entire series, but the love that he has for Lily is just, oh, I can't even. I love it so much. And for me, Divine Rivals, the romance story in this book, is right up there with those three other books that I've mentioned. I loved it so much. Okay, another book that I had read in the month of February is, it's just a short story, and I'm going to read it from Goodreads because, again, it's a short story. I think it was like maybe an hour and a half long, maybe 2 hours. I listened to it on audio, and I don't want to spoil it. So, it's by Alice Hoffman. It's called The Bookstore Sisters. It says on Goodreads, Isabel Gibson has all but perfected the art of forgetting. She's a New Yorker now, with nothing left to tie her to her Brinkley's Island, Maine. Her parents are gone, the family store is all but bankrupt, and her sister Sophie will probably never speak to her again. But when a mysterious letter arrives in her mailbox, Isabel feels herself drawn to the past. After years of fighting for her independence, she dreads the thought of going back to the island. What she finds there may forever alter her path and change everything she thought she knew about her family, her home, and herself. I found this to be a great little story. I enjoyed listening to it very much. But there are trigger warnings for parental death and spousal death and kind of like sisters that have broken up, I guess, that don't speak anymore. But really, if you're looking for a quick book to kind of get lost into, that's not too heart-wrenching, I guess. Maybe that is, if you hear banging, there is like crazy wind here and it's raining like crazy. So could be the fans in the bathroom vent, or it could be something out on the deck. I don't know. But if you're looking for a good story, I would definitely recommend that. Another book I had read this past month is The Summer Book Club by Susan Mallery, I think is her name. It was an ARC. And this story follows three women. They're at different kind of stages in life. So you've got three women. They're all struggling with different things, and they all happen to belong to the same book club. So a quick rundown on the characters. You've got Laurel. She is divorced. She has two preteen girls, and she owns a thrifting business. Her ex-husband is a deadbeat who has disappeared to Jamaica and hardly ever sees his children, which has left his children feeling obviously unloved. Jagger, the oldest daughter, of the two. She hates men. She has decided that men are scum of the earth and she has absolutely no use for them. And unfortunately, Laurel doesn't have a lot of men in her life. All of her friends and her coworkers are women. So her children aren't around men a lot, with the exception of their father, who they don't see very often. So Laurel is kind of brought to attention about Jagger's hate of men when she is called into a parent-teacher conference because of the things that Jagger was saying in class about boys in general. This really has opened up Laurel's eyes, and she's decided that she needs to get a man in her life, not a romantic type of relationship, just a friendship, so that she can show her daughters that not all men are scum. And then you have got, let me see, I gotta change the page here, Paris. She is a divorced woman. She does not have any children. Her child is her dog. His name is Bandit. She owns a farm stand, and she grew up in an abusive home with a very angry mother who used to beat her and treat her like trash. She went to years of therapy, and because of her own anger issues, that is why her husband left her. So she went into therapy. She figured out what was going on with herself. She did a lot of healing and a lot of work on herself, but she's still not at a point where she trusts herself to be in a romantic relationship. She is scared of having children. She is scared of having another husband or boyfriend because she does not want that rage to come out again. So she keeps to herself and her friends. And her and Laurel have been best friends since they were younger. And then you've got Cassie. Oh, and both of those women live in California. Then you've got Cassie, who lives in Maine, and her parents have passed away. She's got a brother and a sister. They're all adults now, and Cassie has always been the helper in the family. She's always been there to help her brother run the bar, or to help her sister with her children, or help her sister after her sister's husband had passed away. Like, she's the helper in the family. That's what she's always done ever since she was a kid, since her parents passed away. Well, her brother and sister have decided enough is enough, and they told her that she needs to go check out the inheritance that their uncle left them, or left her when he passed away, and the inheritance happens to be in California. So they fired her from her job because she had worked for her brother and for her sister, and they kicked her out of her home, which she used to live above the bar. It's the only home she's really ever known. And they told her she needed to go away for 6 months to California. And it just so happens that on the same day that all of this has happened, her boyfriend dumps her for somebody else. Turns out he's got himself a place across the country and a new girlfriend, and he's done with her. So her whole life has been upended. So she heads to California. She doesn't want to go. She's scared. I think she's like 28 or something. She's never been on her own. She doesn't know what she wants out of life because she's always been worried about helping everybody else in their lives, that she's never really lived her life. Well, when she gets to California, she starts working in a bookstore that also has like a wine bar type thing in it, and she meets Paris and Laurel, and she joins their book club. They all become friends, and Cassie starts renting a place from Laurel, and she gets to know herself. She learns about things that she likes, that she doesn't like. She learns how to be in a relationship without having to fix the person in the relationship. These three women go through different things and different struggles, but they're always there for one another. And as you read through the book, you're going to watch them grow and see different relationships that they have. And it's a really great story. I really enjoyed it. The last book I read for the month, and I'm totally going to butcher this review of this book, but please know that I loved it. And it is called Half a Soul. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the author at the moment, but it'll be on the screen. So this is a closed door romance, romantasy. It's in Regency, England. And it has been described as a Pride and Prejudice meets Howl's Moving Castle kind of historical romantasy book. It is also book 1 in the series. I want to give a trigger warning for poverty, because that is definitely there. and like death, I guess, and there is a war scene. So just a little tidbit there for you. But we are following Dora, who has been cursed by a fairy. She was out one day as a little kid and she was just doing little kid things, and Fairy Lord approached her and he decided he was going to take her soul. Well, luckily for her, her cousin Vanessa was nearby and she stabbed him with a pair of scissors. So the Lord Fairy only managed to get half of Dora's soul, which, I mean, that's great. She survived, but the problem with only half of a soul is all of Dora's emotions and feelings are severely dimmed compared to everybody else. She doesn't know what would be embarrassing in society, and she doesn't always feel what she's supposed to be feeling when she's supposed to be feeling it because, again, I gotta adjust, sorry. Her emotions are seriously dimmed. Well, fast forward a few years and the two girls, which they grew up together, they lived together, the two girls are of the age to be presented in society to look for a man. So their aunt takes them off to London, and yeah, things don't go as planned, at least not for the aunt. Vanessa is presented. The aunt has kind of given up hope that anybody would want Dora because her eyes, like one eye is discolored compared to the other one, and she's just an odd girl and nobody would want to be around her, or so her aunt believes. So she puts all of her energy into Vanessa. So while she's doing this, Dora happens to venture out one day and she ventures into a shop and she meets Albert, a war veteran who lost his arm in war, but now he has a nice like metal arm. He also happens to be a doctor. And she meets the king's magician, or I'm trying to find it. I wrote it down. And I know somebody's probably screaming at me on the other end of the camera. The king's magician. Anyways, he is Albert's best friend and his name is Elias. He also happens to be a bit odd himself, but Vanessa has contacted him about Dora's situation, and he might be willing to help Dora with her situation of only having half of a soul. But first, he needs to work on solving the mystery behind the children in the workhouses falling into a deep sleep where they never wake up again and they die. It's kind of like a new pandemic type deal. So him and Albert have been going from workhouse to workhouse trying to figure out what's going on with these children. And Dora kind of gets swept up in this. And yeah, she has a wonderful friendship with Albert. And the aunt is hoping that her and Albert become a thing. And she has great banter with Elias. And yeah, the story is wonderful. You're following along as Dora is becoming so invested in these children and in this friendship. And yeah, I really enjoyed this story. Again, I probably didn't describe it very well, but I swear it's a really good book, and it is a closed door romance. And like I said, it is book 1 in a new series. Well, it's probably not new, like, I mean, it's new, but it's probably not new because it's probably been out for a little while before I even get around to reading it. But yeah, I read 7 books in February. I enjoyed pretty much all of them. Again, Divine Rivals for me takes number 1. It's definitely going to be in my top 10 of the year. And let me know, have you read any of these books? If you have, did you like any of them? Have you ever done a blind date with the book before? That was totally new for me, and I'm really glad I did it. I'm glad I did it through the library, because if I had gone to the bookstore and bought 2 books that I've already read, I kind of would have been probably quite annoyed. So I'm glad I did it through the library. But yeah, let me know what you've been reading. Let me know how you've been. We're still in winter here. Today's super windy and rainy, but we might get some snow today. But anyways, on to a new reading month, and I have high hopes that it's going to be a good one. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing good and cozy and reading lots of things, and I will talk to you later. Bye!